as a continent has now defined ourselves.
In the news, political parties, Supreme Court endorses INEC's deregistration of 74 political parties. An anti-corruption ICPC points as corruption as the country's greatest challenge. 10 victims of human trafficking rescued in Katsina. Japan prolongs COVID-19 registrations. Details shortly. This is TOS Television, your digital-first pan-African news network. I am Adesu Suyi, and this is TOS News 360. The Supreme Court on Friday has upheld an earlier judgment of the Court of Appeal which approved the registration of National Unity Party and 73 others. Last year, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, deregistered the political parties over their inability to win any election during the 2019 general elections. In the judgment delivered by Justice Adamu Jaro, the Supreme Court said the deregistration was done in line with the laws and compliance with the extant provisions of the Constitution and Electoral Act. Chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, Professor Bolaji Owasonuye, says corruption is the greatest challenge facing Nigeria at the moment. Owasonuye made this known at a capacity building workshop for members of the House of Representatives Committee on Anti-Corruption in Abuja. He said corruption was responsible for all the negative indexes the country was known for. He called for concerted efforts from both state and non-state actors in tackling the problem so as to create a better Nigeria. Some maritime stakeholders in Lagos have supported the federal government's suspension of the managing director of the Nigerian Ports Authority, NPA. They said it had the right to hire and fire anyone in its establishment. This development came as a reaction to the suspension of the managing director of Nigerian Port Authority, Ms. Hadiza Bala Usman, on May 6 by President Muhammadu Buhari. Katsina Command of the Nigerian Immigration Service have rescued 10 victims of human trafficking. The incident happened on Friday and victims involved are Austin Nane, Otto Happiness, Eyintoluwa Adelola, Adam Zainab, Jamilu Okafor Blessing, Azizat Adamu, and Adeshola Eyinzolua. The NIS Comptroller for Katsina, Abdulrazak Muhazi, confirmed the development to journalists on Friday as he pointed that the 10 victims were from Lagos, Delta and Edo and were picked up at Baban Mutum axis of the border post. The Central Bank of Nigeria has lengthened the time frame of its Naira for Dollar scheme that was first scheduled to end on the 8th of May 2021. The date, which was extended indefinitely, was made known on Thursday in a memo to all deposit money banks, international money transfer operators, and the general public. The memo is titled Introduction of the CBN's Naira for Dollar scheme for diaspora remittances and was signed by A.S. Jibrin for the Director, Trade and Exchange Department. This is your digital-first pan-African news network, TOS Television, and you are watching TOS News 360, Stories in Africa. When we return, do stay tuned. After almost 6 months of severing ties, Somalia on Thursday said it was restoring diplomatic ties with neighboring Kenya following mediation by Kenya. Somalia cut ties with Kenya in December 15, 2020, after it accused Nairobi of interference in its politics. The tense relations between the two countries are over a maritime boundary and the ownership of potential oil and gas deposits, some of which lie off the coast of Jubaland, one of Somalia's 5 semi-autonomous states. Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi and his allies on Thursday ousted Zoe Kabila, younger brother to Joseph Kabila, former head of state and political rival of Tshisekedi, as governor of one of the country's regions. Zoe Kabila is accused of poor governance and misappropriating $1.9 million of unpaid salaries and other funds, lack of respect for the institution of the provincial assembly and for the national authorities, among other things, according to the motion by the regional assembly. A ban on the sale of automatic pistols in Cameroon has been announced by Territorial Administration Minister Paul Atanga Nji after a meeting with gun sellers in the country on Thursday, citing rising insecurity in some parts of the country. Nji said the number of guns owned by civilians was higher than the licenses issued to them. He said this posed a challenge to the government in tracking down gun owners posing a security threat. The decision is part of a need to keep data on persons who buy the self-defense weapons and ensure authorization is not fake, as well as conformity in the authorization of different guns. The World Health Organization has warned that African countries risk a new wave of coronavirus infections due to the slow distribution of vaccines and the spread of new variants. The number of cases in Africa as of Thursday stands at more than 4.5 million, including 123,000 deaths, according to the World Health Organization. Complacency and non-compliance with preventive measures, according to the WHO, is because of the relatively low number of COVID-19 cases recorded on the continent. The first ever national wildlife census to be conducted on land and sea wildlife has been launched by Kenya on Friday. The census is said to be part of the efforts made towards the preservation and protection of wildlife by the government of the East African nation, also to determine Kenya's wildlife population trends and distribution over time, according to the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife. In addition, the objectives are to identify threats to wildlife conservation and management in the Kenya's landscape and change the conservation model that mitigates human-wildlife conflict while protecting people's livelihoods, a model that balances conservation and livelihoods. This is TOS Television, your digital first Pan-African news network. You're watching TOS News 360. More stories from around the world when we return. Do stay tuned. On UK by-elections, northern town of Hartlepool in the United Kingdom has for the first time been won by the Conservative Party since the constituency's creation in 1974. In the results announced on Friday, British Conservative candidate Jill Mortimer won the Parliament seat with 15,529 votes to 8,589, secured by the Labour Party candidate Paul Williams. There were a total of 16 candidates that stood in the by-election. Ms. Mortimer hailed the victory as truly historic, saying she was proud to be the first Conservative Member of Parliament for 57 years. She is the first woman ever to be elected as Member of Parliament in Hartlepool. The United Nations Human Rights Office and other rights groups have strongly criticized the police raid into one of Rio de Janeiro's largest slum areas. The raid in the early hours of Thursday is the deadliest police operation in the city, reportedly targeting drug traffickers, left at least 25 people dead. Residents say police entered homes without warrant and killed suspects who wanted to surrender. Deputy Police Chief Rodrigo Oliveira said that officers acted within the law and the only execution that took place was that of the police officer shot in the head. The United Nations Human Rights Office has called for an independent investigation. Imran Khan, Pakistan's Prime Minister, is in Saudi Arabia on a three-day visit to Saudi Arabia based on the invitation by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in an effort to rebuilding strained diplomatic relations between the long-term close allies. The duo will as well discuss regional and international issues of common interest, according to Saudi state media. Based on Pakistan and Saudi Arabia's bilateral relations, Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa was Saudi Arabia on Tuesday and held a meeting with the Crown Prince where matters of mutual interest, regional security situation, including recent development in Afghan peace process, bilateral defense, security, collaboration for regional peace and connectivity were discussed, according to a statement by Pakistan military. In an Anchors Barras program, maize pyramid has been flagged off for the 2021 maize wet season farming under the Maize Association of Nigeria CBN Anchor Barras program in Katsina State. As the Central Bank of Nigeria unveils the pyramid, which is a rare one, CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele stated that the bank have been able to achieve that through synergy among stakeholders and the resilience of farmers. The governor stated that monetary policy measures will be limited if some of the structural constraints that limit productivity in key sectors of Nigeria's economy, such as agriculture, is not addressed. However, the Apex Bank reiterated its backing for young or youth who want to go into agriculture. The House of Representatives have taken to invite various departments and agencies of the federal government over illegal financial flows in Nigeria. The House specifically mandated its committees on finance, anti-corruption, financial crimes, banking and currency, and insurance and actuarial matters to investigate the phenomenon of illicit financial flows and appraise the federal government's current policy framework to curb the continuous loss of Nigeria's revenues to illicit financial flows. The House also mandated the Committees on Finance, National Planning and Economic Development, Anti-Corruption, Financial Crimes, Banking and Currency and Insurance and Actuarial Matters to appraise the Federal Inland Revenue Service's current framework for identifying, tracing, preventing and sanctioning cross-border tax evasion and other illicit financial outflows. This is your digital first Pan-African news network, TOS Television, and you're still watching TOS News 360. Stories on sports when we return. Do stay tuned. Less than 3 months to Tokyo Olympics, Japan on Friday extended a state of emergency in several regions of Japan until the end of May as COVID-19 cases surge. Aichi and Fukuoka regions were added to Tokyo, Osaka, Hyogo and Kyoto regions affected by the restrictions, according to Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga. Prime Minister Suga said the government had hoped that a short and powerful state of emergency would contain the fourth wave of the virus in the country. The Prime Minister reiterated his stance at a news conference that it is still possible to host a secure and safe Tokyo Olympics this summer. Dethroned Juventus host AC Milan on Sunday in a clash of former Serie A title and now fighting to qualify for the Champions League. Juventus bid for a 10th consecutive title collapsed as Inter Milan sealed their first league crown since 2010 with 4 games to spare last weekend. Antonio Conte's Inter host Sampdoria in the San Siro Saturday, their first game at home since being crowned champions, with fans only allowed to celebrate outside because of COVID-19 restrictions. And to Qatar 2020, the Confederation of African Football, CAF, have ruled that qualifiers have been moved from June to September due to the recent spread of the COVID-19 that has made it impossible for some of the venues to host matches. CAF made this statement yesterday in conjunction with FIFA after taking into consideration the current disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to ensure optimal playing conditions for all teams. The qualifiers were scheduled to begin in early June, having already been postponed from October last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And that is TOS News 360 on your digital first Pan-African news network. For more updates, visit www.tostvnetwork.com. Do also follow and like our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And remember to subscribe on YouTube. I'm Adesuwa Osuyi. Thanks for watching.
But we as a continent have now defined ourselves.